Thank you for your participation. For the last 2 days, we've had a fantastic event, both on fintech and metaverse side, in payment and banking and digitalization and fintech. We have had so many outputs, and as regards the future, we have heard about forecasts in Turkey and in the world. We're going to talk about fintech ecosystem and digital banking, and we're going to talk about security. We have listened to regulations and digitalization and what's happening in cyber security. That's what we're going to discuss right now. We have experts in the field with a long background in cybersecurity. I would like to begin with Ali Kutluhan Aktaş from Intertech. So here's my question. Basically speaking, in terms of digital finance and banking, what makes securities important based on your experience for a long time? For the last 3 months, I have been a VP in informatics in Intertech. I was in the credit registration bureau, and then in Fox TV, Super Online, I worked, and on a vertical level, I've worked in so many different industries, including a bank, and now I am at Intertech. It's a software house. So Intertech turned 35 this year. In 1987, it was founded. It produces banking software. So what does security mean in finance? How critical is it? The answer lies with an enterprise like that, and it's really leading the way in Intertech, and I have very well all good observations about that. So normally I'm used to speaking at security conferences, but now I'm addressing a different audience right now. I'm really, really very happy. So I have these members of the audience that are outside the security realm, so it's quite fun for me. I'd like to share with you some statistics. So last February, the World Bank announced Fintech report, and based on that report, in emerging economies, when you look at a period of 10 years, number of people with banking accounts rose from 7% to 76%. And in terms of mobile or digital banking transactions, their market share rose from 35 to 52%. So basically, when we look at emerging economies, there is a serious development in digitalization, where I'm talking about retail, I'm talking about individuals. At Istanbul Fintech Week, we have been together, and we're getting together with very important actors. There is a massive market here, and each kind of motivation at the end of the day, each asset can be abused, but we have a huge market, and hackers are targeting this market. That's why in finance, we have a huge share, and actually there are these secret actors that would like to grab a share from that cake, and they have become institutionalized. They call themselves Hacker Inch. They have call centers. They are institutionalized. Among those hacker groups, the protocols really manage their own computerized systems. So actually, when you think of a company, hackers pay way more attention to security than other companies because they know exactly how it affects. So in terms of financial security, it's become a hot topic. It's very correct what you just said. You know, hacking has become so large that it's become commercialized, and it's almost like ransom as a service. You know, we have SaaS and BaaS, and it's almost ransom as a service. On the insider area, we're seeing so many threat activities. That's why we need to be really very careful. Semih, I'd like to turn to you. So you're managing a huge business at Yapı Kredi. When you think of digital finance and banking, what is the importance you lay to security? I'd like to introduce myself. I've been working in cybersecurity for 15 years, and I have been responsible for information security, and I work at Yapı Kredi Technology Department. Actually, in all these previous sessions, speakers were asked to evaluate the past decade, and actually in the last decade, from our perspective, in cybersecurity and banking in Turkey, a lot of changes have occurred. So hackers are really innovating, and they're acting faster, way faster than us. And we're talking about agile in technology, but hackers are way more agile than us. That's what we have seen. And recently, especially with digitalization speeding up, data is the new oil. And this is an approach that's widely accepted. So data has become more and more important. And in the banking system, when we think of fintechs and collaboration with fintechs, and also mobile banking, novelties, all of them are data-based transactions. And banking means trust. You trust a bank. And beyond that, what you do is to give data to a bank, and you need an operational work to maintain that trust. So our perspective is as follows. We want to protect the customers. There are so many social engineering attacks to the customers themselves, and then we're talking about the bank's own security. When we look at that side of it, just like Mr. Kutluhan said, hackers dedicate themselves to these areas. The main motivation of hackers is financial revenues. And when we look at what's happening in the last decade, finance industry receives the highest number of attacks among all other industries. And this is something that's really become a hot topic, and it's been mentioned before as well when we think of the banking regulation and when we think of legislation. That's very important, but compliance with regulation does not really ensure 100% trust. That's just the beginning. We need to really consolidate. Yes, our job is entirely to protect data. Now, for example, we are the cyber security managers of Exim in Turkey, and you touched upon a very important point, actually. You protect the customer, and you have to protect yourselves. Reputation matters more than anything else. That's why, as a cybersecurity manager, we need to invest a lot of our efforts and money into that area. That's very, very important when we think of giant technology companies and other companies. That's very important. Semih, I have another question. So we're talking about data security, but we're also talking about cyber resilience and sustainability in cyber resilience. What do you do in this particular area? What kind of a portfolio do you have? What do you prioritize as a service? Could you talk a little bit about that? Well, recently, with the pandemic, obviously, taking the lead, we discussed that previously, and we also had tragic events recently. Cybersecurity could be seen as like a reflection. So it is unexpected. Anything can happen anytime in this area. That's why, both on the customer side, both on the bank side itself, there's so many controls in place. So Utir mentioned the Yapı Kredi Forward program in the morning, and she talked about the customer focus. We bring it to the next level, and what we do is the customer trusts us with their data, and we process the data that the bank creates itself. We put checks in place. There are so many approaches that are adopted, especially with zero trust. Adopted in the US, controls have become quite prevalent across the world, and our approach is the following. So, if you want to access data, you verify the ID and then trust. I'm not going to delve into the technical aspects, but especially about your company, for instance. So, the data are encrypted and data are transferred with encryption. Devices are then decrypting the data and limit the access. So these are controls that are in place. We're talking about user-based or system-level controls. We have a lot of investments in that area, especially when we think of banking employees. We would like to increase the cybersecurity awareness of them, and we make a lot of efforts in that regard. So you invest in so many technologies and services, but despite all of these activities, the weakest link is humans. And when humans make errors, let's not say errors, but maybe when they do something risky, then all the controls can come crashing down. That's why one of our priorities is to make sure that they are more aware of information security.
Well, yes. Well, at individual level and for at corporate level, we always provide refreshment courses for everyone's awareness. Well, this should be sustainable, and you're a huge technology company in terms of cybersecurity, and for payments, you have big investments, but how to really ensure that I like analogies. As I'm talking about cybersecurity, I make use of different disciplines, and my wife is a food engineer, and cybersecurity is like, imagine a bakery, neighborhood bakery, and you wouldn't really think that they'd have metal detector, right? But if you are to set up a bread factory, you need a metal detector, because inside of the bread that you're making, a piece can break from the machines, and it could mix or get inside the bread, so you can't really allow that. That's why metal detectors are mandatory, so your risks are always related with your investments, because the security controls of companies of different sizes would not really be the same. So there are all these companies providing financial software. Maybe millions and billions of dollars are spent. If you are involved in it, security is something that you need to address very seriously. And as Selim mentioned, security systems are in use. In addition to that, Intertech is a software house, and we have serious controls for software security. And a very popular thing about today is protestware. It's a very common type of attacks today. In the software that we use today, nobody is actually writing software from the beginning to the end. Many libraries are being used. ChatGPT, we're talking about, even inside of it, there are many ready-to-use libraries. But who produces these ready-to-use libraries? This is produced by community. Who is the community? You, I, anybody else? A guy who lives in a neighborhood in Moscow. And this guy may be under sanction right now. And the community's codes, they all run with donations. And 80% of the modern software that you see, I'm talking about this figure, 80%, when you translate it into code, 80% are made up of ready-to-use libraries. Statistically, this is correct. And 80% is generated by the community, the volunteering software people. jQuery, you may have heard of it, or Log4j, you may have heard of it. These are all ready libraries, and that guy in Moscow does not receive donations anymore because he is under sanction. So this donation, he cannot get it anymore, and he is in a situation preventing him from making a living. A few weeks ago, I made a crash. I had a car crash, and my wife crashed into someone, and I can't really feed this repository, they said. And one day they come back and they make the code unoperatable, and then WebEx stops, and then the world's giants stop, from Cisco to Microsoft. Their tools stop working, and in the new period, when we have a look at it, World Economic Forum, Global Risks Forum, the most important risk here is the cost of living, the cost that we need to have covered, and for cyber security protests where attacks are going to be seen more frequently. Yes, it's been a good contribution. It is not only about traditional products and services, the firewall, etc. I'm not going to go inside the technicalities of that, but development is also something that we need to think about. We need contributions there. Ready libraries, they are ready, but open source. We need to confirm that they're reliable, and we need to invest in these libraries. Well, the library security, there is a huge shift there. Android or iOS. So when this is asked, 90% would say iOS is more reliable. But the development state and security in the development state, only 84% would say Android looks not reliable, and 80% would say iOS is not looking reliable to me. So there is only 1% of difference. So from security side, the image that you deliver is quite important. The image that you have is quite important. Well, this is somehow related with the question that you previously asked. Your anticipations, the risks. Well, from the cybersecurity aspect, what kind of risks we're going to see? Ecosystem, it is beyond the banking environment. It is now being minimized or reduced into a banking app, and fintechs are going towards creating an ecosystem. So financial technology, it is related with data flows, and it is also related with APIs, and it is mostly about the language of these two APIs. So these are the technologies that we are using right now, and with integrations in order to boost customer interactions, we develop them very quickly. We want to be on the market more quickly. We want to touch the customer more quickly. As we are doing this, many controls should be run, because when you take a step inside this ecosystem, you need to open the data for the use of others, and you get entitled to use others' data as well. So access to data and API security. This is the new concept. And new investments, new risks, they're all going to be our reality. And third-party libraries, as you mentioned, many institutions, I think it was in the previous session, well, without any products and without any software developer, you can get it. So you know what you're purchasing at its face value, but deep inside you may not really have an idea in the background. So ChatGPT, we've been talking about it, and I bumped into it in the morning. Italy Data Protection Authority banned ChatGPT, and certain rules of ethics were imposed that they needed to observe in a period of 5 months. But ChatGPT is more popular, but generative AI is also the Google or Amazon version of that, and it is somehow in the background right now. And from the security aspect, you need to give data to the other party for them to run securely, and you feed the system by doing this. Are we going to lose our work? Are we going to have robots taking over our jobs? These are all the questions, but data protection authorities and regulations are examining ethical values, and they are putting forward ethical values, and they're going to set standards, and it's going to be another risk for us because the outcome of it may be related, maybe is similar with ChatGPT, but we need to keep an eye on what we deliver as data. So, well, disclosing everything to ChatGPT and feeding the database in a very haphazard manner, it's not really a good idea. We don't really know what other parties are and how they're using the data that we're disclosing. But, well, this yes, ban and Italy banning ChatGPT. The UK, for example, uh, also is working on a ban end-to-end encryption and data not being disclosed. Those who develop the regulations and those who are subject to these regulations, I think the core component of it is disregarded. API, everybody says yes, but as for regulations, new outcomes are being derived right now for the security of APIs. Jeff Bezos, for example, 15 years ago, everything was going to be related with APIs, he said. So this is the perspective that I have. And for the coming period, for API, for AI, many attacks are going to be organized to harm people's financial reputation. So, as an employee of a cybersecurity company, and what about you? What kind of anticipations do you have? I'd like to make a reference to ChatGPT, and we've heard a lot about it. There are many technology companies with us. If we ask their source codes, they wouldn't really give them to us. You'd understand it, but developers are loading ChatGPT, loading them on ChatGPT. Data breach has taken place on Samsung. The codes have been exposed. They were only uploading to fix some of the bugs, and ChatGPT access has been banned by Samsung. You may anticipate that the game is changing, and for cybersecurity, you may have heard of it from other disciplines. If a product is free of charge, you are the product, so your data is being used. I think some 7 million people's data was exposed, the information uploaded there, the questions asked there. So, with a security instinct, I am a bit prudent because it is also related with country security as well, because we don't really know who is asking what, and if this person asking the question is of critical importance. Risks may be inside of threats, but there is huge opportunity, but there is huge threat. When I think about the world in total, everybody is asking to ChatGPT without navigators, so we can't really go anywhere, right? We may not even be able to find a way back home, but if we become so reliant on ChatGPT in a few months, and if this becomes an established fact, countries will not really be able to do what they're doing today. So what they know, they will forget about it. And this is going to be quite important. So our country's security is also important. We have very limited time here, but Russia, by 2025, 1st of January, they are going to use domestic software. Because of the sanctions, all their softwares had stopped. So technology is important as much as agriculture is. So in the long term, we need to make sure that more resources are allocated to this to tackle and manage these risks. Thank you. Russia's domestic software program, the payment systems, they have stalled too, right? Yeah, everything had come to a point of stopping. So they had even forgotten to pass through turnstiles. So we need to pay attention to that. Anything that you want to add, Semih? Technology, it is becoming more widespread. Adoption is increasing as well. So ecosystem is expanding as well. So no institution is going to develop things by themselves. So risks are growing. This is the reason. So cyber security risks and threats, we will try to minimize them. Thank you. And we talked about fintech ecosystem, we talked about financial ecosystem, and we are standing by all these industries at Procenne Digital Security. Our time is up, so it seems we don't have any questions anyway. Thank you.